Hello students, welcome back to English class. So in the previous class we discussed the scene 1 of Watchman of the Lake. So today we are going to discuss scene 2, and before that let's recall a few things that we discussed in the previous class regarding the first scene. So we learned the character of Headman and also Mara and also Bhima. So what was the workmen doing? They were repairing the roads because the king is about to arrive. The king is about to arrive in the village, and that's why they were repairing the road. And Headman was angry because of Mara. He was angry on both Mara as well as the workmen who were not working properly because they were getting disturbed by Mara. So that's why he calls Bhima and he commands Bhima to take away Mara from his sight, so that they can work without any disturbance. So Mara was taken away by Bhima as per the command of the headman. So before discussing or before entering scene 2, it's time to learn the word. It's time to learn the meaning of the word that I gave you in the previous class, that is vague, right? So what is the meaning of vague? Not clearly expressed, unclear, not clear in meaning. For example, you can say that a vague idea, unclear idea, vague idea, a vague question. It's not that easy to understand. It is very confusing and vague idea or question, vague question. His answer was vague, unclear. So this is how we use the word vague in a sentence. So now let's walk into the village and see what happens today, and let's find out where Mara is now and what is he doing, and let's see if he'll meet the king or not. So scene 2, here the description is given, the description of the king's arrival. So what are the arrangements made in the village to welcome the king? So the entire village is waiting for the arrival of the king. They are all excited to see the king. So at the same time we come to know about the nature of king. So if I ask you, so how a king should be, you have a few ideas in your mind. So let's analyze the character of king here too, and you may feel that he is an ideal king, because I feel that he is an ideal king. He is not like headman. He is very humble and he is very patient, and he has the patience to listen what his subjects have to say. So he behaves very friendly and cordially and Mara here. He doesn't scold Mara. So let's see how Mara meets the king here. So before that, just read the description. Trumpets blowing. Trumpets is an instrument. So that's how they welcome the king with all the respect and honor. Trumpet. Trumpet blows, they blow the trumpet, and restrained cheering of crowds. So the restraint is, of course, the people, the village people are shouting and cheering. So they are talking to each other and restrained, and they are also controlled, right? Because the king is arriving, and announce the arrival of the king. So someone announces the arrival of the king, and suddenly there is confusion. The moment when the announcement is made that the king is arriving, suddenly there was a confusion, a kind of chaos that created among people. As the king is about to pass under a tree. So there was a tree and the king was passing under that tree, and the moment he was passing under the tree, someone jumps down from its branches. Look at that. Anybody would get startled, right? All of a sudden, if somebody jumps from the tree when you're walking under a tree, so obviously you'll feel scared, right? Be startled. So when he was passing, somebody jumps down from its branches. So who is that someone here? Okay, so a medley of voices crying. Medley of voices, all of a sudden everybody is shouting and they are calling somebody's name, and they are asking, where did he jump from? Who is he? Hold him, catch him. What is he doing? Is he trying to disturb or harm the king? Something like that. So the people were anxious about this man who jumped from the tree. So at that moment the king, as I said, here the king is a higher authority, and he says, silence, who is this man? So he makes everybody silent, and he orders everybody to keep quiet, and he asks, who is this man? Answering voice, your gracious majesty, this man. So that is how they call the king with all the respect, your gracious majesty. This man, king, we will hear the man himself speak. Look at that. That's the nature of the king. He's not letting anyone else to speak, but he wants to listen from the man itself. That's why he says, I want to hear the man himself speak. Let him speak. Answering voice, your majesty. But still he says, the another man who is there, he says, your majesty, he's unworthy of your majesty's notice. Look at that. Again they all consider that Mara is an unworthy person. He should not meet the king. And that's why this man says, your majesty, he is unworthy of your majesty's notice. And king, he says, again he says the same thing. We will hear the man himself speak. So he wants to hear from that person itself, and he expects the man who jumped from the tree to speak. Let him brought forward. He orders, bring him in front of me. Let him brought forward. The man is dragged before the king. Look at the way how they treat or handle Mara. They drag Mara just like an animal. And the king asks, who are you and where did you drop from? The king interrogates the man. Who are you and where did you jump from? Where did you drop from? Mara now speaks. Now you have to observe how Mara speaks with the king. We have already seen how he conversed with Bhima and other workmen and with the headmen. As I said, right? So here you have to analyze how he speaks with the king. Your gracious majesty, I am an unworthy dog, which shows that Mara knows how to speak with people. He knows how to behave with everyone. So here he is being so humble because he is speaking to the king. He is giving all the respect to the king. So that's why he says, your gracious majesty, my lord, I am an unworthy dog. So he says he considers himself as unworthy dog before the king. But of course I am an unworthy dog, but I have a word to convey to your gracious ears. Look at the words that he uses, which shows his genuine respect towards the king. He says, I have a word to convey. I have a message to convey to your ears, which is very important. And after I have uttered it, so just give me one opportunity, one chance to convey that message to you. I shall gladly, and after saying that, after conveying that message, I shall gladly allow myself to be trampled under the feet of the mighty elephant. Look at that. How humble Mara is. He says, let me say what I want to say, and after that, very happily I allow myself to be trampled, to be crushed under the feet of your elephant, the mighty elephant which bears your royal person, which carries the king. Right, Ambari, what we say. So I am ready. Once I convey the message that I want to tell you, then I'll happily allow myself to be crushed under the feet of the mighty elephant, powerful elephant which carries you. This is what he says. So it shows that Mara's intention is very good. He is even ready to kill himself, but his intention he is waiting only for one thing, that he wants to convey that message. After that, he is ready to face anything, any punishment, but he wants to convey the message to the king, and that's why he is struggling so much. And after that, the king says, where were you all the time? In the tree? The king was shocked, because here we don't feel that Mara is insane or lunatic. We don't see that, but he behaves so seriously, and so we don't feel that he is a mad or lunatic. Even the king might have felt the same thing, and that's why he asks, where were you all the time? In the tree? Mara says, yes, your majesty, I was there since the cock crew. What do you mean by cock crew? I was there since the early morning. So Mara climbed the tree in the early morning and he has been waiting for the arrival of the king. So I knew the royal passage lay here, and he says he knew that the king would pass that way, and that's why he was waiting tree since early morning. King waiting in a tree, he was shocked. The only one who was waiting for the arrival of the king in the tree. So he was shocked, waiting in a tree. You could have asked for an audience. He said that you could have stand there among the audience. You are also, you too belong to this village, and you could have asked, or you could have stand there among other audience. For which Mara says, there is a reason why he couldn't stand there, because he was threatened by the headman and he was taken away by Bhima, under the command of the headman. The situation of Mara, that sounds so pathetic. He gives reason why he couldn't stand among the people. Why? Because he says, they stoned me at sight, which means they threw stone at him wherever they see him, because everybody considered that Mara was a madman, and that's why whenever he appeared there, they started throwing stone at him, and that's why he did not dare standing among the audience and other villagers. And that's why he says that they throw stone at him whenever they saw him, and commanded me to take myself out of the village. They commanded him to take himself out of the village, and they ordered that he should not come there, or he should not be seen anywhere in the village until the king departs. So when I still appeared there, when he still came there, what did they do? They just tied and threw him in a cellar. But he says, the man who was my jailer, who was his jailer? That is Bhima. So Bhima was his jailer. Though a giant in appearance, of course Bhima is giant in appearance, he has a great size which can scare off anyone, but he has the soul of a baby. But he was very kind. This is what Mara says. He could understand the feelings of others, and that's why he says, though Bhima a giant in appearance, but he has the soul of baby. He is very soft. And he let me go when he heard of my dream and the command of the goddess. Look at that, how he convinced Bhima. So Bhima has no ego, that's what he says. So Bhima let him go when he heard of my dream. So Mara might have narrated the story of his dream to Bhima, and he might have said that the goddess of the river had appeared in his dream and she has commanded something way to the king. And when Bhima heard about all these things, he believed the words of Mara. And that's why, by giving respect even to goddess, what did he do? He just let Mara go. And I slipped out unseen and climbed this tree. So cleverly, what did Mara do? Mara escaped from there, and without being noticed by anyone, he climbed the tree and he hid himself in its leaves. And he was waiting and praying for the king's arrival. So this is the story of Mara. So he says everything to the king. So finally the king, look at the way how he asks, what do you want? He doesn't scold Mara. He understands the intention behind his struggle and why he wanted to meet the king. So that's why king asks, what do you want? Which means he is completely convinced. Now Mara says why he wants to meet the king. Now listen to me, Most High. Now listen to me, Majesty. So now he is going to tell everything. He is going to convey everything to the king. So at the same time here, this is important. Here Mara is explaining and describing the significance of the sacred spot. Okay, sacred spot, sacred place. Now he gives everything there, what we call Sthala Purana. Sthala Purana is every place has its own story or history. So this is what he says. So here also he narrates that story to the king about the place where the king was standing. Where your majesty now stands is a sacred spot. He says, where the king is standing now is a sacred place, very holy place, Pavitravada Sthala, holy place. There once stood the great Hanuman. Look at that, in the same place where once stood the great Hanuman on the day Lakshmana was wounded in the battlefield at Lanka. So you might have heard of Ramayana, the story of Ramayana. So while battling or fighting in the battlefield, what happened? Lakshmana fell unconscious and he was wounded in the battlefield at Lanka and lay in a deadly faint, which means almost he was dead. But at that moment, what did Hanuman do? Guided by omens. Hanuman was guided, instructed by prophets. One who predicts the future. So under the guidance of them, Hanuman came here to the place where the king was standing. He came to the place where the king was standing now, and then he went up the mountain, and then he went up the mountain of their village. Okay, and that can be seen where he says, went up the mountain in whose shadow your majesty is resting now, which means the king is at present, the king is standing under the shadow of that mountain. So the Hanuman, thousands of years back, he came to that village and then he flew up to that mountain. He climbed that mountain. There on crest. Why did he climb the mountain, Hanuman? Because Hanuman wanted Sanjeevani, to bring the life of Lakshmana back. So that's why he went up the mountain, and there on its crest, again this is important for 1 mark, where did Hanuman find Sanjeevani? On the crest, top of the hill. Crest is top of the mountain or hill. On its crest he found Sanjeevani. Hanuman found Sanjeevani there, and he flew. Hanuman flew to Lanka with it Sanjeevani. So after taking or plucking the entire Sanjeevani or mountain, he flew to Lanka with it, and at its breath Yama's messengers fled, which means the moment he entered Lanka along with that Sanjeevani, even the death that ran away. That is the power of Sanjeevani. And Lakshmana rose to his feet with a new life. He was brought back to his life because of Sanjeevani. Such was the power of Sanjeevani. So this is what he says. And where it grew, now he says, where it grew, it is Sanjeevani. Where the Sanjeevani grew, there arose a stream. In the same place, the stream took a birth. A stream took a birth in the same place where the Sanjeevani grew, which came down the mountain, and that stream flowed down the mountain and now flows past your majesty's feet, which means beyond your majesty's feet, which means they can see that river now, lake now. So mainly he is talking about that river, and he is giving information how that river took birth and where did it take birth, what is the place or origin of that river. So it took birth in the place where the Sanjeevani was growing, which means this water too has the same power of Sanjeevani. It is as sacred as Sanjeevani. This is what he is trying to say. It's called the Veda. So it is called Veda. The name of the river which flows in their village, that is Veda. Again, that is important for 1 mark, the Veda. Its water is a very life blood of your majesty's humble subjects. He says the entire village people, they are depending on that river, and it's a life blood, Jivala. The water of Veda is a life blood of your majesty's humble subjects. Without it, there is no life for those people. Entire village is depending on that water. So he says about, this is all about the description of the sacred place that he gives king. This is important for 4 mark. Yes, then what does the king ask now? Do the waters flow on all the months of the year? He asks. Flow in all the months of the year? Your Majesty, I am coming to it. He says, I am coming to it, which means I am about to say that. I'll tell you everything. The water has flowed on since the day Hanuman took the Sanjeevani. So water is flowing since the day when Hanuman took the Sanjeevani. Okay, its birth is in the fleeting mist of the mountain top. It starts flowing from the mist-filled mountain tops, and it dances its way through rare flowers, forests, which cover, which means while flowing down, it touches different kinds of flowers and some medicinal plants. When it flows down to the river, then even it carries that medicinal property along with that mountain top and dances its way through rare flowers and forests which cover the mountain side before it comes down to our village. Before coming down to their village, it gives life to so many things, and it touches different kinds of plants and flowers and also medicinal plants, which means it also takes down and falls into the river. And what do? But these people, the villagers, they don't know the value of this water, which has the same power of Sanjeevani. Why it is Sanjeevani? As I said, it touches different kinds of plants and herbs which have medicinal values. It dissolves in the water. And that helps even people. That is good for people. But most villagers do not know about these things. And that's why they are careless about preserving or conserving the water of Veda. In other words, he says the sources of the river Veda is the Sanjeevani, which has a sacred origin. So that's why, as I said, it has the same power of Sanjeevani. And what do? Look at how responsibly Mara asks question. As I said, here in the scene 2, Mara is completely a different character. He looks so serious and he is very serious about the water here. And he says, what do? My lord, here I will repeat the command of the goddess. Now he says everything that goddess said to Mara. He says, I saw her in a vision. Remember, this is the first appearance of the goddess. So it will be asked for 4 mark. Describe the first appearance of the goddess. If you are asked that question, then you have to refer this paragraph. He says, I saw her in a vision. I saw her in a dream. As I lay in my hut. When he was lying in his hut, when he was sleeping in his hut, he saw goddess. I had never seen her before. So he had never seen her before. She stood before me. The goddess stood before him. Her tresses flying in the wind. Hair. Her hair was flying in the wind. There were stars in her coronet, crown. A ruby as big as the eyes of that elephant sparkled on her forehead for a red mark. Look at that. There was a ruby on her forehead which was as big as the eyes of the elephant, which was sparkling, which was shining brightly. Her garment was of gold woven. So she had a garment which was made of gold, and it was lightning. A look at her. When he saw her, came to know that it was the mother. It was the goddess. He understood that it was the mother. And what did he do? I fell at her feet. He fell at her feet. He bowed down to her to seek her blessings. And she said, she comes to the point and she says, so the river Veda, which you see at the foot of the hill, the river Veda, which is flowing down mountain and from which you all drink water. She says, all of you are depending on that river Veda. That is my very own plaything, which means that is her creation. The goddess says, the river Veda is my plaything, I can play with it because it's my creation. It carries in its bosom the nectar. Remember, she says, it is not only just a water, but there is a nectar in it. What does that mean? As I said, it touches different kinds of plants and herbs which has medicinal values. It can also give life to so many people. That's why she says it carries nectar in her bosom, which revives gods and nourishes mortals. Revives gods, again, that is a reference to Lakshmana, right? It gave life to them. It nourishes mortals. Nourishes, it nurtures, it protects, it heals mortals, human beings. But when the summer sun bakes, so when the summer season bakes as boils, when summer sun boils your soil, I keep my pet Veda sheltered. Here my pet, look at the way how she addresses Veda. She addresses Veda as her pet. It's her plaything, right? And she says, I keep my Veda or pet sheltered in the cool glades of the mountains. That is, glades is there will be no water, open areas of grass. So she keeps her safe in the cool glades. People are careless here. She is talking about that, which means they are not taking care of Veda. So when they have enough or sufficient water, they waste it. And when the summer appears, again they all suffer from drought. Right, because we realize the value of water when we do not have water. You will suffer from drought because of your own fault. So when you have water, you don't think of preserving that for the future. So you just let it go and you just let it perish. And that's why she says that then you die of drought. So when summer ends, so finally the summer ends and again you'll have water. In the rainy season, you have water again. You take what you want. You do the same thing, that you take what you want and then allow the precious stream. Look at that, Veda is a precious stream to dissipate. Dissipate is wasting, disappear and perish, destroyed in the foul marshes far off, unclean areas. Because when there is no boundary or when there is no dam built for the water or river, what happens? It overflows and then it flows in some foul marshes. So in other words, she is trying to say that people are not at all worried or serious about this water. They do not know the value or significance of this water. So that's why she says you cannot let it go and perish in the foul marshes. You cannot, waste it. Waste stream. And that's why she says, I command you. People should not die from drought. That's her intention. Look at that. So here she also gives a kind of warning to the people that you should not die from drought. At the same time, you have to take care of river Veda. You should not let her perish in the foul marshes or in unclean areas. Tell your king to build a tank. So the goddess tells Mara or commands Mara to convey the message that tell your king to build a tank and not let Veda leave this village. So this is the command of the goddess. So the goddess wants the king to build a lake or to give a shelter to river Veda, and they should not let her leave this village. In case she leaves this village, then so many people will die of drought. So that's why she says, give her a home, give her a shelter. These were the words of the goddess. I have repeated them. Your majesty may trample me down under your elephant now. So that shows Mara's generosity. He says, I have conveyed what I wanted to convey. Now you can punish me. I'm ready to take anything. So this is what Mara says. The king, he really appreciated the work of Mara here. He believed, he understood the intention of Mara, and he says, far from it. Don't talk about the punishment. You have the grace of gods upon you. Look at that. He says, you have the blessings of gods upon you, because the goddess could have chosen someone else, but she chose Mara for this job, which means she knows that Mara is worthy. He is not an unworthy dog as the headman called, but Mara is a very responsible person. So you have the grace of gods upon you. That he was insulted by the headman and the entire village, but now he is getting appreciated by the king. So your words are weighty, he says. Your words, there is value and meaning in your words. There is a weightage in your words. It's not a nonsense talk. When we return this way tomorrow, accompany us to the capital. The king is inviting Mara to his capital. He says, come along with me tomorrow when I leave this village and accompany me to the capital. Mara says, forgive me, gracious one, I have only these rags to wear. Rags, tattered clothes. He doesn't have good clothes to wear because he is going with the king. What the people may think. That's why he says, forgive me, I cannot come along with you since you are the king and I have only these rags to wear. And I am Mara the mad. Look at that. Everybody says, and the entire village calls him mad, and that's why he says, forgive me, I won't come along with you since I am mad. How can I follow your majesty to the capital? It could be a disgrace to you. But the king says, our command is clear. So he doesn't want to listen to anything, but he says, here it shows that the king is not giving any importance to the appearance or the cloth of Mara, but he really appreciated the words of Mara. So that's why he says, my command is clear, which means you have to follow that. Mara says, I obey. So this is all about scene 2. So here what we learn, the significance of this dream. So what is the significance of Mara's dream? It can be said that man has been constantly exploiting nature. We all know that. He wastes so much of water. Because of this attitude, mankind facing lots of problems such as scarcity of water and calamities and flood, droughts, all these problems, right? Because here in this lesson, we also learn that nature is both the protector and destroyer. She has all the right to do. If we take care of her, she will take care of us. But if we don't take care of her, but if we take her for granted, then nobody can stop her from destroying everything, including the entire world and human beings. So that's why here he says, because of this attitude, mankind facing lots of problems. He says that we should use what is required, not more than that. Earlier people used to maintain the lakes and rivers in earlier days so that people could live without any scarcity of water. But today we don't see such kind of things here at present. So that's why even today in most of the places people are facing scarcity of water. So goddess orders to build a lake and save water for the future generation. So this is the significance of his dream. I hope you understood, and let's call it a day. We'll continue in the next class. So we'll discuss scene 3 in the next class. Till then, take care of yourselves. Thank you.